to be too exact because I know some of you will sit there and do the math and get my age. So that particular day in Savannah, it was a normal slow day, morning. I was sitting in the 911 center, just chit-chatting with them. Got so bored, I called Claudia, and we were on the phone talking. While me and Claudia was on the phone, a hot call came across the radio. So I told Claudia, gotta go, hung up. I jumped in my car to go and assist the officer. It was a bit of fight in Savannah. If you know, gang activity is very heavily there. So it was a fight in the park. And one of the officers had already got there, and it was around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. One of the officers had already got there, so I left the dispatch room telling them I was headed to go assist. Now, this street that I took to get there, it had a sharp curve, but I rode this street hundreds of times. Lights and sirens on, lights and sirens off. Lights and sirens on, lights and sirens off. What happened this particular morning, I don't know. The doctors say I probably would never know, and they say it's probably best that I don't know. But in that curve, I failed to negotiate that curve. My car slammed into some trees. Now, my vehicle looked like an empty, mangled soda can. All the windows were shattered, but they were in. All the car doors were slammed, sealed shut. And as fate would have it, it happened near a doctor's house, and he was home. This doctor came out, and he worked me. He rendered aid, and he worked me until EMS got there. EMS arrived shortly, and they worked me as well, but the doctor couldn't get any vital signs. So when EMS took over and they were working me, they couldn't get any vital signs. By that time, my captain, who I still have a close relationship with, and even had to call him this week to refresh my memory, my captain arrived on the scene, and he was there while they were working me. One of the EMS guys told my captain, India didn't make it. India didn't survive the accident. So by this time, now the news media is coming. So my captain said he stepped away to go get inside his car, called my chief and the major. He informed my chief and the major that India didn't make it. So my chief and major were coming out to the scene just to see the scene, with the understanding that India didn't survive the accident. My captain said when he hung up the phone from them, he came back to where I was, and EMS was prepping me to pick me up off the ground. When they picked me up to lift me and put me on the gurney, my captain said, out of the clear blue, I just started fighting him. And he said, I kept repeating, put me down, put me down. He said that I wouldn't listen to anyone. There was concern because not only was my head laying open, and later determined that they diagnosed me traumatic brain trauma, but something stabbed me in the thigh. And it was bleeding heavily. And you know that you can bleed out from anywhere in there. So my captain said that he said in his stern voice, India, stop, hold your legs still. And he said, just like that, I just stopped fighting with them, and I held my legs still. Then they were able to cut my uniform off. And I still have that uniform to today, with the dirt and the blood spots, you know, just as a reminder. Somewhere along that time, with them cutting the uniform off, my captain said they were asking, India, how did you get out the car? India, how did you get out the car? And this is still a little shaky to me, because he said, I told them my grandmother took me out the car. My grandmother has been deceased for several years. Fast forwarding through this, got out of intensive care, and now they've moved me into a regular room. When they moved me to a regular room, I opened my eyes. The first person I saw was my mom. My mom is from Florence, South Carolina. And in Florence, South Carolina, there's a cemetery there called Snow Hill Cemetery. As a matter of fact, the grandma that I said took me out the car, she's laid to rest in that cemetery. My uncles, grandfather, aunts, cousins, great-grandparents, you name it, they're all at rest in that cemetery. So when I opened my eyes and saw my mom, I felt the need to tell her my experience. And so I told her that I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel, like most people say they saw. I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel, but I told her all these people from Snow Hill Cemetery came to visit me. So my mom says, she asked me, well, baby, did you know them? And I told her some of them I did, and some of them I didn't. So they said my mom broke down, and my brother, who's my cousin, but we call him brother because we're all raised up together, and he saved it by holding her and telling her, no, they came to visit her, but she didn't go back with them. And so that kind of lightened her up. Fast forwarding a little further, now I'm at the rehabilitation stage. And this was probably the most hardest part for me. At the rehabilitation stage, if I knew you, Althea, if I knew you and you were in my room, we would talk. We would talk about everything that we would normally talk about. But if Althea went to the bathroom or stepped outside the door and the doctor would ask, India, who was that was just in your room? I would have no recollection of it. The officers were great. They were like clockwork. I forgot how to walk, and it could have been from the stabbing in my thigh, but they were like clockwork. They would come to my room, get me out the wheelchair, and try to get me to walk up and down the hall. And then I had officers that would come in and, we're gonna go over your signals and codes. We had 10 signals and codes in Savannah, and they would try to drill those in me. So now I'm at the point where they're taking me to a room with paper and pen. And so they said, India, let's see how much of your ABCs you remember. And to hear her say that, and I'm thinking, she must be really think I'm stupid. I know my ABCs. So I picked up the pad and the pen. I wanted to write. I tried to write, but I couldn't write it. Then I started crying. Oh, the tears started rolling. And I think God left me with just enough sense to know that you're supposed to know your ABCs. But why I didn't know them, I don't know. So then they started doing little things. Every day it was an activity to see what I did remember and what I couldn't remember. My equilibrium was off so bad. I took showers and fell out. My daughter, she told on me. She was not supposed to, but she told. So they had a nice build-up in the rehab room. It was like a kitchen, a living room. So they said, well, India, your item to cook is gonna be macaroni and cheese. A little small, cheap box. Fine, I can do that. So I went and they said, I want you to act just like you're home. Whatever you do, just act like you're at home. So I went and I pulled out the pot and I put the water in there and I put the pot on the stove and turned the eye on. And I went to go sit and look at TV. Y'all know I never went back to that stove. They took the pot off, but I never even went back to that stove. So they made the decision right then. She has a small child at home. We can't let her go home and in that stage, so I had to have a living nurse. For me to have a living nurse, that was like the signature that I was handicapped. I didn't want the nurse to do anything for me. I can bathe myself. I don't need a nurse, so they sent the nurse. The nurse came with one of those the little benches that the older people have that you put in the shower. That was just the bottom line for me. Then it came to driving. India, let's see what your driving skills are. I forgot that. They had a little car. It had a steering wheel, had the brakes and stuff. And to sit there, and at first I didn't realize, what is this? Then it came to me after working with me, okay, this is supposed to be a car. So on the screen, they had a big screen, and I was sitting in the car, and they would say, India, let's get as close to this car as you possibly can. And my eyes would tell me, no, I can't get any closer. But my brain would tell me, oh, you can get closer, and I would hit it every time. So after they worked with me on that, then they felt comfortable enough to take me on the street. Somehow the news media got a wind of it, and they came along. And as my dad used to say, wow, there really must not be no news in Savannah. So we went on the driving test. I had a steering wheel. She had a steering wheel. I had brakes and gas. She had brakes and gas. I was so nervous because if I fail this test, they're going to take my license. But I did pass that test. She said I drove a little too fast, and it was on the news and everything. But I did pass that test. So a couple of months go by, and I'm happy. I'm feeling myself. My world is still spinning. I don't know how to explain it. It's just spinning. But I was able to talk my captain and my major into putting me back on the road. And they put me back on the road with a training officer. And I would never tell the training officer when we got out the car. He never realized that I always had to hold on to the car and stand for a minute, let everything stop swirling. That went fine. We went out we had EVOC training officers, so their thing was, India, okay, we're gonna go, since you failed to negotiate a curve, that's what we're gonna work on. And in Savannah, it's called Hutchinson Allen. It used to be an old racetrack, and we still had access to it. So these training officers, it was one in front, I was in the middle, and there was a car in back of me. And we all had the portable radios. And we were at the racetrack, and we was zooming around. All right, India, we're doing good. You know, one in front, one in back, and I'm still in the middle. We're doing good. Let's get it up to about 40. You No, it went well. Zoom, Zoom. I don't know what we took it up to, but each time we went around, we took it up a little faster. I don't know whether I froze, but they said I almost saved it, but I fishtailed and hit the concrete wall. Everyone jumps out. India, you okay? You okay? You know, I know what's gonna happen if I'm not okay, so I'm playing it. I'm a big girl. No, I can handle this. I'm a big girl. You know, because I wasn't hurt, but they had to report it in anyway. And so that's when they made the decision that I would be on desk duty. I didn't want desk duty. They had just taken the SROs from Chatham County, and so now the school board was coming up with their own SRO program. And this is where Chief Bryant came in, and he offered me the position with the startup of their resource officers program. I didn't really care for kids that much. That's why I say God had a plan. I didn't really care for kids that much. And I thought about it, do I really want to do that? Or do I want to stay sitting at the desk? My doctors, the therapists, my major, my captain, my mom, my dad, we had the conference at the hospital, and that's when they told me we want to train her on computers, data entry or something, because India, there's a real possibility that you'll never go back to policing. If anyone ever had suicidal thoughts, that was when I had my thoughts. I questioned God. Why did I live? Why didn't I just die if I was just going to be a handicap? Eventually, after all that, I did go to the school. I called the chief and I said, does the offer still stand? And he said, yes. So that's when I got into the school system. When you get into the school system, I wanted to learn my way around the campus, find out where the hot spots were. And sooner or later, I got familiar with that, and the kids liked me. They wanted to hang around me. They wanted to hang in my office. Oh no. So after walking around the campus, I started picking up boys. It was only boys. For whatever reason, boys were put outside the classroom. And so I started walking my campus, and then I would see a boy get in line. Then I'll go down another hall. I would see another boy fall in line. And that's how I started doing it. Started lining them up. After a while, I had about 8 or so, and we would go to my office. My office was an old classroom, so I had chairs in there, and I would have the chairs in a circle. I had a chair that moved around, so my chair was in the middle. And I would just listen to them one by one. I had rules. Nobody talks while one is talking. They followed the rules. I would listen to each child one at a time. And it was always, oh, the teacher don't like me. She put me out because she can't stand me. And I didn't judge them. I just listened. Pretty soon, it became an everyday thing. I said, you know what, we need to give ourselves a name, because we're a little club now. So it was named Second Chance for Youth. They didn't like the name. They said it sounded like they were on probation. So I was heavily involved in Fraternal Order of Police. I was a member of Fraternal Order of Police, and I started telling them about all the little boys that I pick up that are constantly put outside the classroom. And they started supporting me. Then the police association started supporting me. They were my biggest supporters. Every year I can expect that check to be cut. Well, all the kids started seeing that I was taking up all this time with these kids. So then the AB honor roll students, Reuben, he was a kid of mine, and he said, Officer Smith, I want to be in your program. Do I have to be bad to be in your program? And then that didn't set good with me, because then I was wondering, what kind of message am I sending out? In order for me to pay you any attention, you got to be bad. So I said, no, Reuben, I can put you in my program. So then he came with friends. So then I figured, okay, well, since they AB honor roll and these aren't doing well, because what I found out, they got put out of class every time it was a reading assignment. So rather than let my peers see that I can't read, I know if I do something, Ms. Jackson gonna put me out. So that's what they were doing. So I would use Reuben and the AB honor roll students to help after school do homework, and we would all be in my office. Then lo and behold, girls came. Officer Smith, why you don't have any girls? You don't have any girl programs. We want a program. Can we be in your program? So one day I took it to the guys while we were there after school, and I said, girls want to be implemented in the program. Do y'all want girls in the program? You know, some said yeah, and then some said no. And so I said, and then my major, he said, well, India, don't take on more than you can chew. You know, if you want to just stick with boys, just stick with boys. He felt like I was getting too big. And so I said, well, no, I'll take the girls too. So we implemented girls. So that's how that came about. Then my chief from Savannah was at some meeting here, and he met my chief here from Riverdale, Chief Knox, and they were talking, and then he asked my chief about the youth program, which she had no knowledge of it. And so he told her about it, and so when she got back, she had me come to her office, and then she said, tell me about the program. And I told her, and so she said she wanted it implemented at Riverdale. So I told her I needed, she said, what do you need to implement this program? And I said, well, I need a curriculum. So she said, get on the internet, find a curriculum, and let me know. Well, I found a curriculum in Idaho. Thinking, okay, Chief Knox ain't gonna let me go. Next thing she said, are you available to go? And I said, yes. And so she sent me to Idaho to get that training from the National Crime Prevention. Then from there, that's when Chief Turner recruited me for Clayton County. And then I stayed there for a while, and then Chief Kimbrough wanted me to bring the program over to the Sheriff Department. And now that he's no longer there, so now I'm back at Clayton County Police Department. But my thing is, and I'm gonna end this to let you guys go, I'm gonna end this with saying, never give up on yourself. I refuse that being a handicap wasn't an option for me. I took it a step further because I finished my bachelor's degree in criminal justice and went on to finish my master's in public administration. So never give up on yourself.